children, I hope you all are good. So once again I am here with another topic of history and that we need to understand, and this topic is the nationalist movement. So in this chapter basically we are going to discuss about the different nationalist movement, tribal revolt, and we will start from the 1870 to the 1942. What happened in the Indian politics. Let's start the chapter. See beta, we have seen that Britishers has started to capture the Indian territories. They were increasing their political, economical and social power in India. They started to make us the colony and we were colony of India. In 1857 we have discussed there was a Sepoy mutiny that we gave as a first war of independence. It was also happened, but it was also brutally crushed. Now after that there were many rebels and revolts started in India. So let's start with the peasant revolt. After 1857, the series of revolt against the Britishers and their destructive rule took place. Because of the frequent famine supported by the economic hardship, peasants were not happy with the Britishers. Okay, regularly the famines are coming and the Britishers are doing nothing for the Indian farmers. The situation on the British run indigo plantation turned into the indigo revolt. Why? The Britishers there, what they did? They made compulsion to the peasants that grow the indigo. Indigo which was used to shine the white clothes. And once the indigo grown on a particular land, na beta, that land after some time became the barren. You cannot grow anything on that land. But they were compelling. And when they were compelling, after that what happened? The land started to become barren and the famines, frequent famines came to the area. And especially in Champaran between 1866 to 1868, Jessore in 1880 and Darbhanga between 1889 to 90. The condition was not better there and not even in the tea plantation. See, the Wahhabi movement has been stretched from 1820 to 1870 with Patna as its main nervous center. Then after that Kulka rebellion had been started. Took shape when the section of the Sikh led by Guru Ram Singh stood in protest against the deliberate policy of the British to determine enmity between the Hindu and Muslim. The revolt was mercilessly suppressed in 1872. So peasant has revolted. Indigo planters has revolted, tea planters has revolted, Kuka rebellion was there, Wahhabi movement was there. So there were so many rebels against the anti-policy of the Britishers. After peasants, there were the tribal also who were also not happy with the Britishers. Because the Britishers, they started to snatch their natural home, the forest. They want that there should be a deforestation, forest should cut out and convert into the cultivable land. If the forest will cut, where the tribal people will go? That's why they also revolted against the British. Forests were the private preserve for the tribal. To curtail down these privileges, they strongly oppose all the measure, all the policies of the Britishers. The Britishers made hard effort and made so many forest law, so many regulations, so many acts which fulfill their own objectives. Where these tribal people, they were not allowed to enter into the forest, they were not allowed to collect the forest produce. So how they will survive? Their livelihood was snatched. Besides, they were cheated and exploited by the British officials, police and moneylender. This left the tribal with no alternative but yes, resist against the British. So tribal also started to revolt against the Britishers, and one of the famous violent, that was the Munda revolt in Chota Nagpur Plateau. This began in 1881 and continued for the 4 years till 1885. The second revolt occurred in the tribal community in 1889 and was crushed in 1900. The tribes of Manipur, Assam, Odisha, Chota Nagpur, means the different areas of tribal community, they revolted frequently against the anti-policy of the British. In 1889, Vasudev Balwant Phadke organized the tribals and peasants and led an armed revolt against the British. Okay, now we have to use the arm to fight against the British and their terrible army. So all these tribal revolt were spontaneous, localized and short-lived. It was not long-term revolt. But of course they were crushed. Yes, they were against the British policy and they started unplanned local rebels. That's why they were brutally suppressed by the Britishers. So their economic conditions were not good at that time. Now, after the peasants and tribal revolts, there were so many nationalist movements from 1817 to 1940 happened in India. What was the background of these national movements? The havoc caused by the economic and industrial policies of the Britishers indirectly, not directly, indirectly somewhere it unified the Indian people in the different parts. Because their industrial policy, they gave the great blow, great loss to the Indian industrialist. Now, British education system proved to be a blessing in disguise. It enabled Indian to study the history of other nation. Now, what happened? That Britishers gave us the Western education and they thought that they will convert into the Christianity or the English person. But what happened? Indians were studying about the history of other nations. They inspired themselves about the struggle of those nations for their freedom. They educate themselves how to unite ourselves, how to start the movement or revolution against the British and make us free. So somewhere indirectly the British education helped the Indian to inspire, to motivate against the Britishers only. Then the contemporary Indian literature and newspaper also create the awareness and atmosphere of the nationalism. Bankim Chand Chatterjee's book was Anandmat and its song that became the national song of India, Vande Mataram. It infused the spirit of nationalism among the Indians. The novels of Munshi Premchand highlighted the poverty of Indian villages, which was caused only by the British policies. So somewhere the literary work or the literature of the Indian text helped and paved the way to the nationalism of India. The scholarly works of the R.C. Dutt, Dadabhai Naoroji, M.G. Ranade exposed how the British policies benefit only and only to the Britain by draining out our wealth and sent to the India. Means they were feeding their mother country, utilizing our wealth. They published this through the speeches and writing and helped to create the awareness among the Indian society. So literacy and education helped a lot to unite the people, to spread the feeling of nationalism among the Indian. The ideas of Indian intellectual social reformer, they also spread through the press. The press also helped. The vernacular press became very active in second half of 19th century. Vernacular press means the press which is using the different local language, vernacular, different language. Because if we are going to print or telling something in the different local language, then people easily understand. So vernacular press helped a lot. By 1875, there were nearly 400 newspapers in India which were awakening the Indian masses. Amrita Bazar Patrika. You can watch at the National Museum the model of Amrita Bazar Patrika, National Science Museum mein hai. Hindu Patriot of Bengal, The Hindu, Swadesh Mitra of Madras, the Bombay Samachar and the Kesari of Bombay, Azad and Hindustan in UP, the Herald of Bihar and the Tribune of Lahore. Means there were so many newspapers and magazines published at that time to awaken the Indian society. The 19th century also witnessed the cultural awakening also. the task of rediscovering the glorious past of India. Many social reformers at that time emerged to reform the Indian society. They revived the interest in the timeless wisdom embedded in the Indian ancient literature. This was a time era when the reformers and the historians, they wanted this is the time to reinterpret the history, to tell the Indian, to tell the society, to tell every people of the India that pride to be an Indian. You are the son from the brave ancestry. So that's why when they tell us that astronomy, science, mathematics, culture, sculpture, artist, painter, any field, India was at the top. We are not backward and primitive. When such types of the story revealed among the Indian society, the people started to feel proud. Yes, we can achieve something, and Indian masses united. Through the Theosophical Society, Mrs. Annie Besant aroused the conscience of the Indian and enlightened them about their great civilization. Think about your Indus Valley civilization. Your ancestors were very great. So such types of the texts when revealed to the Indian feel proud, and they got a sense of collective belongingness. And then these were the causes of the national movement. Apart from these developments, which were the base of the mass movement, there were some causes also. Though we know there was a disunity among the society, which was very used by the Britisher by using the divide and rule policy. There was a racial discrimination. Then there was major factor in the alienation of the educated Indian youth. Racial discrimination shadowed every aspect of the interaction between the British and the Indians. At the social levels, you can see Indians were prohibited by using the parks, restaurant, library, hospitals, railway, coaches. Those who were used by English, Indian cannot use those things. That was the great racial discrimination at that time. Highly qualified Indians were also humiliated at that time. For example, आपके सुरेंद्रनाथ Banerjee, he was dismissed from ICS on weak grounds. The real reason for such injustice was that British administrator could not tolerate an intelligent or outspoken Indian. By how the Indian can become their officer. So that's why they throw him out. So that was the racial discrimination. Political front पे अगर हम देखते हैं बेटा, the some loyal Indians were appointed to the legislative council, but those were loyal to Britishers only. And moreover, they were for the name only. They were not given so much power so that they can speak in the favor of Indian. At the economic level also, there was a deliberate policy to cripple down the economic progress of India. Lots of custom duties, lots of tax was imposed on the Indian goods, Indian services, so that they can become the expensive, and the Indian merchants were unable to sell them in the British market. And then after that, Viceroy Lord Lutyens, who was involved in India in the Second Afghan War, which resulted in the needless loss of numerous lives. That was also the base and reason of movement. क्यों Afghan War में why the Indian were killed? Unintentionally or intentionally, he involved Indian to the Afghan War, where we lost so many Indians' life. To make matters worse, when India was recovering from after effect of the severe famine, what happened? The Lord Lutyens organized a great darbar to announce the Queen Victoria, the Empress of India now is the Queen Victoria. He banned the free expression of the ideas through the Vernacular Press Act. Lutyens said, no freedom of speech and expression right now. To the press also, Vernacular Press Act of 1878 was passed. Freedom of speech and expression was snatched. He also passed the Arm Act in the same year that debarred Indians from carrying any of the weapon for self-defense. Yes, we don't have right to carry any weapon. Then the discrimination did not stop here only. The tariff on the Indian cotton goods was raised. टैक्स रेस कर दिया टू सपोर्ट द ब्रिटिशर्स गुड्स. All these act back to back. These made the Indian against the British rule, accelerated the coming out of for the freedom movement. Now this end, we need to fight against the Britishers. Now what happened after this back-to-back act against the Indian? There was the formation of political organization, intellectuals of India, distressed by the discriminatory and repressive policies of Britishers, where every day Indians were humiliated by the British. The Indians started forming the political association to raise their voice against the Britishers. So what happened in 1871? M.G. Ranade हो गए, आपके चिपलांकर हो गए, गोपाल कृष्ण गोखले हो गए. They formed the Pune Sarjanik Sabha. Pune Sarjanik Sabha. And this association was formed to focus attention on the poor social, economic, political condition of India and to create the awareness among the Indian as well as to draw the attention of the government that yes, this condition of the India is because of the British government. Now Surendranath Banerjee led a protest against the Government Regulation Act of 1877. ये एक और एक्ट आ गया था, Regulation Act, which lowered the age to appear in the ICS exam. This is very horrible. If you are going to lower down the age of the exam, so they want that Indians should not able to participate in this exam. The Madras Mahajan Sabha was founded in 1884 with the Bombay Presidency Association following suit in 1885. Though beta, they have lowered down the age of ICS exam. After that also many Indians qualify the exam. Now what will you do? Surendranath Banerjee, so you throw out. But what happened now? The other Indian also qualify the exam. So in 1883 then A.O. Hume, Alan Octavian Hume, जिन्हें हम A.O. Hume कहते हैं, he was a retired British civil servant interested in the welfare of India. You can see the picture of A.O. Hume. He moved ahead to form an association, especially the political association, where he proposed that the organization should work on the moral, material and political progress of India. Some prominent Indians such as Dadabhai Naroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Baharuddin Taibi, and then they also formed the Indian National Union on the same lines in 1884, which later merged with the A.O. Hume Political Association, INC, Indian National Congress. Means 1884 की जो आपकी थी Indian National Union, that merged in the A.O. Hume Association, INC, Indian National Congress, and now they started to struggle for the freedom of India to fight against the foreign rule. So it was formed in 1885, and the first INC president, means the meeting was presided by, or the first president of INC was Vomesh Chandra Banerjee. W.C. Banerjee. The Indian National Congress represents the urge of the political conscience of India, so that the political progress, political improvement, political freedom can be gained by the Britishers. Means in against we are asking about the political progress of India. So we started to demand the political rights from the British government. Now INC is having the two phases, the moderate and the radical phase. Moderate phase was till the time of 1885 to 1905. The phase of the Congress activities covering the year between this period is generally regarded the moderate phase, because in this period they were not aggressive, they were not violent. Means very polite manner they were playing. Not lots of agitational method were there. They presented their grievances to the British government in the form of long petition, prayers, appeals, etc. Please follow it, please fulfill it, always requested. Always give a letter and petition to the and appeals to the British government. So that's why it was a moderate phase. Why? Because we are asking, we are requesting, we are begging. Not we are very aggressive. And it depends on the Britishers whether they are going to accept the INC demand or not. Some of the demand of moderate phase leader were improvement in agriculture and condition of peasantry. Please do something in the agriculture of India. Do something for the improvement of the poor peasantry class. Yes, again writing a petition. Selection of Indian for higher administrative posts. Reduce the tax surplus and spread the education. Such types of the petition was written to the British government. So in the beginning, the government paid little heed to the Congress. But as its membership increased, British government is very clever. They started to deny all the demands. And then these demands converted into the prayers and appeals, and against the Britishers criticized and denied. By now, several young members in the INC, they were not happy with this petition or appeal to the British government. They want some rigid, some radical method, some aggressive method where they can pressurize the Britishers to accept their demand. So they felt that active opposition should be there. Economic distress of the people, growing severity of the famine, and the hostile attitude of the government inaugurated a new phase of India's struggle for freedom. And what happened? The wasteful expenditure on Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee celebration instead of undertaking emergency relief measure. The important moderate leader in the early phase of the INC were the W.C. Banerjee, Umesh Chandra Banerjee, Dadabhai Naoroji, Bairuddin Tayyabji, Firoz Shah Mehta and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. But later on, the young leaders, they want the agitational method, the feeling of extreme nationalism found, and then radical intellectuals arise. Dadabhai Naoroji raised his voice against the economic exploitation. Okay, what type of the policies and what type of the tax you people are imposing and introducing in the Indian market or Indian economy, that you are draining the wealth of India. And you are taking the wealth of India to the England to feed your mother country. The railways, the plantation, whatever you are expending, that only and only for your development. So decline of the traditional handicraft industry. Thus these leaders popularized the idea of Swadeshi. Now what happened? Britishers are doing nothing. So what we have to do? We have to ask people, please purchase only and only Indian goods. Swadeshi up now. The extremist phase started in 1905 and 1918. Moderate phase was soon overshadowed by the radical nationalists. Now, आपके आ गए लाल बाल पाल. ये नाम आपको याद रखना है. लाल, L-A-L, Lal, then Bal, and after that Pal. Now what is this Lal, Bal, Pal? Lal means Lala Lajpat Rai. Then आपका Bal means Bal Gangadhar Tilak. And the Pal is Vipin Chandra Pal. The triangle of this Lal, Bal, Pal was the extremist phase, where they give the aggression, the radical method to the Britishers, pressurize the Britishers to follow their request and to accept their plea. The failure of the British government to accept any of the important demands of the nationalists that produced the disillusionment among the political conscious people. They started to aware the people, see what they are making for you, the wrong political policies, the wrong principle, the wrong laws. Please wake up, unite yourself. Mass movement should be there. The method of dominance, moderate leaders, that was rejected. Thus the split of Congress at Surat session in 1907. What happened? This previous moderate phase leader who believe in the prayer and plea, and this period of the radical phase, extremist phase, those who believe in the aggression, now they cannot work together. They want to separate. Okay, we cannot unite and we cannot collectively work in the INC, and that's why there was a split in the INC Congress, and that split was known as Surat session in 1907. Now moving to the partition of Bengal. One of the most significant event which gave a turning point to the national movement of India. That was the partition of Bengal in 1905, and it was done by the Lord Curzon at that time. He divided the Bengal into two parts, East Bengal and West Bengal. And you can see the result today, East Bengal. Previously it was East Pakistan, and now it is the Bangladesh. That division C. He held that Bengal was a big provinces. What argument has been given? The rubbish argument given by the Lord Curzon beta. He said it is the biggest territory, unable to administer, and the people are of the different religion, so we cannot rule over. And that's why we divide the Bengal. But what happened? In West Bengal area, mostly Hindu communities were living at that time. And in East Bengal area, mostly Muslim people were living. By dividing this, they divide the Hindu and Muslim. That partition showed. And people of Bengal reacted sharply to this partition of Bengal. Even 16th October 1905 observed as the mourning day, Shok Divas manaya gaya. The movement spread throughout the Bengal. Boycott, Swadeshi movement has been started. Boycott the British good and institution. Swadeshi up now. Use Swadeshi product. That were adopted by all Indian. Now what was Swadeshi and boycott actually? Swadeshi and boycott movements were the two sides of the same coin. They run smoothly, collectively with each other. Okay. Now what Swadeshi movement jo tha beta, in that the people were requested that owns one's own country. Use those products which are made in your own country. It was based on the principle of self-reliance, which referred to the manufacturing and using the indigenous goods. Donations were collected to set up the industries of India, industries of textiles, soap, matches, oil, potteries. Okay, we will open our own industry and we will use our own things, own goods. Jamshedji Tata worked very hard and he established his iron and steel industry with the help of Swadeshi contribution at that time. Swadeshi mostly stress on the using on only and only Indian goods and boycott foreign goods. Not to use. Boycott was based on the philosophy of passive resistance. We are not going to use the Britishers' good. Boycott. So what happened? Britishers' economy will fell down. The Congress extended its support to the movement in its Banaras session in 1905 and then in its Calcutta session in 1906. Then what happened? The British exploited the situation. Ab Britishers ko laga the control. It is out of control. What they did? The brutal suppression. A reign of terror was unleashed. Brutally beaten up, imprisoned, killed the extremists, leading to their arrest, imprisonment, deportation. In 1907, Lala Lajpat Rai was also arrested for instigating demonstration in Punjab, followed by Tilak's deportation in 1908 to Burma. What they can do? They just arrest our leaders. To maintain peace, the British offered the few constitutional reforms like a chocolate or lollipop. Okay, don't do such a revolution, such a protest. We are going to do some reforms for you. The Indian Council Act was passed in 1909. It was also known as Marley-Minto reforms, at the name of the Secretary of State of India, Minto, Viceroy. So Marley-Minto reform was introduced. What happened in this act? They increased the number of elected members in the Legislative Council. And these members were elected indirectly and their power remained advisory. Means they had given us, okay, dekho, in Legislative Council, now more Indians can work. Then what happened? Revolutionary trend has started. Now you cannot stop the Indian, and the Gadar movement also there. The shift from the extremism and radical nationalism to the revolution. Pehle extremist, were radical, and now revolution. This trend was happened logically one by one after the Indian society. The British policy had led to the rampant unemployment. What you people are doing in the India? You're just making us a slave. Lots of unemployment, lots of famine, nothing for the livelihood. It created the widespread anger among the educated classes also. And the youth of India now joined the movement. Series of revolutionary acts created panic among the British. Khudiram Bose, who along with the Prafull Chakki has planned to kill Mr. Monsford, an unpopular judge of Muzaffarpur, arrested and hanged. Some well-known secret society was also established at that time. At that time, these secret society were the Yugantar. Yugantar was made by the Bhupendranath Datta, Abhinav Bharat by the V.D. Savarkar. Indian revolutionary activities, not only India, in abroad also it was there. Many socialists, they also become the mouthpiece. What happened? In 1905, Shyamji Krishna Verma set up the India House in London. And his paper, Indian Sociologist, became the mouthpiece of revolutionary. Whatever he has written, that was the aim of the revolutionary of that time. V.D. Savarkar also joined it in the 1907. And in 1913, the Indian immigrants organized the party which was known as Hindustan Gadar Party. And that party was made in USA. Means from abroad, from outside of India, the Indians were working very hard for the freedom of India. They were pressurizing the British government from the outside world. Then it held that it aimed to work for the liberation of the India, their motherland. It held that Indians could achieve freedom only by national revolution in India. Its prominent member, Gadar party के जो member थे, सोहन सिंह भकना, लाला हरदयाल, काशीराम, करीम बख्श and अजीत सिंह. The Gadar party revolutionary urged the Indian living abroad to come back to India to help the Indian revolutionary overthrow the British governments. So in this way, from the abroad also we get the support. Now moving to the communalism and formation of Muslim League. After 1857, Britishers know very well that yes, we need to disrupt the unity of India. So they follow the policy of divide and rule, and especially in between the Hindu and Muslim. The partition of Bengal was one of the great example of this divide and rule policy. Now what they want? The leaders like Tilak organized mass celebration of festivals like Ganesh Chaturthi to demonstrate unity and patriotism, because leaders, they try to unite Hindu and Muslim. The British were quick to take advantage of this. They encouraged separation of tendency among the breakaway of section of Muslim, led by the Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka. इनको support किया Britishers ने. They were also encouraged to start the separate organization for Muslim. Britishers says that Muslims should make their own organization. INC is the Hindu organization. So they give such a seed to the brain of the Muslim people that divide, separate from the INC. In 1906, Aga Khan and Nawab Salimullah Khan formed the All India Muslim League Association. All India Muslim League, and it was supported by Viceroy Minto, because he believed in divide and rule. The objective of this organization was very clear: to safeguard political, social, economic rights of Indian Muslim only. See, objective is not India, objective is only Muslim. In 1911, the British shifted the capital of India from Calcutta to Delhi. That you have to know, beta. In 1911, Delhi became the capital. Previously, Calcutta was the capital. This was formally inaugurated at the Darbar of Viceroy Harding, who entered Delhi ceremoniously on an elephant. He entered through elephant. A bomb was hurled at him near Chandni Chowk, killing the man next to him and injuring many spectators. The plot was masterminded by Rash Bihari Bose. He wanted to kill the Harding, but unfortunately, the man nearby Harding was killed in that. So that was the Delhi Darbar. Now, national movement during the First World War. First World War when happened, beta? 1914 to 1918. That is the time period of World War I. This is one beta, 1918. Okay. Now, when the First World War broke out, India being a colony, it was automatically drawn into the World War I. Forcibly, the Britishers recruited the Indian and sent to the troops of Britain to fight in the name of Britain. Overseas fight, Indian were fighting from the British sides. See, we don't have anything for the World War I, but we have to fight from the British sides. Forcibly. The Congress supported the war at that time and kept a low profile as it believed that British certainly give us the freedom or they fulfill our demand after the World War I. Meanwhile, frustration was rising among the people due to the scarcity of goods, rise in price, all caused the war. People were very angered that Britishers are doing nothing. Why we are fighting overseas fight? When there is nothing in the Indian economy, prices hike हो रहे हैं, scarcity of goods हो रही है. Nothing was doing for the Indian colony. Now what happened? The Home Rule League was there. In order to revive the spirit of the people, Tilak established the Home Rule League. Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He established this in 1916 to attain the self-government for India. He was an clear vision that now the India will rule by themselves. We do not need any ruler. At the same time, inspired by the Irish Home Rule movement, Annie Besant also launched the similar Home Rule League in India and started the journal New India to spread the message of freedom among the Indians. Think that you people are free. Now you have to rule over the India. That is the Home Rule movement. Started, spread to the different parts of the country with the effort of Tilak and Annie Besant. Self-governance की जो feeling थी, that was spread among the people. Now, the government reacted sharply and Annie Besant was confined along with her two colleagues. This though angered the people. Why you have arrested her? And they protested against this repression. Finally, the government pressurized and they had released the Annie Besant. Now, this was the time when the Mahatma Gandhi emerged in the Indian politics, because Mahatma Gandhi entered in Indian politics in January 1915 when he returned from South Africa after becoming the barrister. So, when he entered in 1915, returned to India, he attended the Congress session at Bombay and then in 1916 at Lucknow. He visited the whole India, understand the problem, and then he decided there is a mass movement, need of mass movement, the mass participation where the many people collectively work for the freedom of India. He encouraged the idea of cottage industry based on khadi as means of achieving self-reliance. Khadi apnao. He also came to know about the miserable condition of the indigo plantation at Champaran. He launched the Champaran Satyagraha also. People supported him and then this Satyagraha was successful. Then after that he also started the Satyagraha at Ahmedabad, where the mill worker condition was worst. Then between mill owner and workers, he did some agreement and the mill worker condition became some different. This impressed the young nationalist leader like Rajendra Prasad, Vallabhbhai Patel, J.B. Kripalani, Shri Majrulal Haq, and they joined the Gandhijis. Gandhiji's firmness in his steady devotion to the truth won many followers and soon he became the national figure of the nationalist movement. He believed in the Satyagraha and that's why when he returned to India, consequently he started the three Satyagraha, Champaran, Kheda and Ahmedabad Satyagraha, and these three Satyagraha consecutively successful. And after that what happened? The British government is not going to watch these three continuous success of the Satyagraha. They are in action now and they passed the Rowlatt Act in 1919. Rowlatt Act was passed. Okay, and this Rowlatt Act had given the tremendous or enormous power to the Britisher, because according to this act, the Britishers can arrest any political suspect without any trial for 2 years. Means that person will not produce in front of the judge, directly to the British jail, whomsoever they suspect, without any evidences. So this was the black law in the Indian history. Lots of political violence has spread, and then many leaders resigned from the legislative council. Among them were Muhammad Ali Jinnah, also Madan Mohan Malviya also. Okay, what type of act you have introduced in the Indian politics? This is very wrong. The Gandhiji has started the Rowlatt Satyagraha campaign against this repressive act. To mobilize the people on large scale, he announced that on 6th April 1919, this would be the Satyagraha day, and over all India there would be nationwide strike. And then Rowlatt Satyagraha, after that the Jallianwala Bagh massacre happened. Because to stop this Rowlatt Satyagraha, at many places Britishers introduced the martial law. The demonstration against the Rowlatt Act accompanied the violence at some places also. Such incidents happened to Congress leader Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu and Dr. Satyapal Reddy. These two were arrested by the government in Amritsar. And in Amritsar, government banned the meeting at the public places. There was a martial law. Next day, 13th April 1919, there were many people who gathered. They were unaware about this martial law. They were coming out from the other state to celebrate the Baisakhi. There were the local people also who sit in the Jallianwala Bagh very politely, very in peaceful manner. They just discussing what to do on the arrest of these two Congress leaders, Dr. Satyapal Reddy and Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu. But what happened? General Dyer entered the park, and with his troop he blocked the exit and ordered the troops open fire. Hundreds of people were killed or wounded. You can see in this picture, you can visit the Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar. Till now you can watch many marks of bullets on the wall. The massacre aroused the widespread public fury, and Lieutenant Governor of Punjab Michael O'Dwyer responded by imposing martial law in Punjab. Means he was not feeling, and there was no humanity. He was saying that it was good, it should happen. Dyer, he said this, the tragedy about Gandhiji to the forefront of the Indian politics. Many innocent people were killed and you don't feel guilty. The Congress boycotted the official committee inquiry headed by Lord Hunter. Gandhiji organized the passive resistance movement in protest of Jallianwala Bagh. A wave of mass demonstrations, strikes, rioting, lots of things happened. Political instability. Jallianwala Bagh massacre marked a turning point in the history of the struggle of freedom. After that, Britishers also humiliated the Indian, but still the Indian never left their agitation and their fight, their rebel, their revolution, their movement against the Britishers. There is one case study of Khilafat movement to the non-cooperation movement has been given to you 1919. But a Khilafat movement जो था during the First World War, what happened? The Ottoman Empire of the Turkey, it was defeated by the Britishers. And Ottoman Empire, it was ruling over the Christian population in the Europe for so many years. Then allies of the Europe collectively they defeated, and this resulted in the abolition of the title Caliph. मतलब जो head थे, the ruler of the Ottoman Empire, he was considered as a Caliph, the spiritual head. And the rumor spread that with the Sultan of Ottoman Empire, there was something mishappening done by the Britishers. So the relation between the British and Islamic people, Muslim, they went undergone. Means there was a resistance by the Islamic people against the Britishers. In all over the world, what happened? The Islamic people started to protest against the Britishers for this defeat of Ottoman Empire of Turkey. In India also, Muslim, they started to protest against the Britishers. They were two brothers, Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. We also call them Ali brother, along with the Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, they organized the anti-British mass movement that is known as the Khilafat movement. Even they made the Khilafat committee also. This movement was aimed at building political unity among the Muslims, using their influence to save the caliphate from the disintegration. So Congress leader used two opportunities. They tried to unite Hindu and Muslim. They got these opportunities. Why not to support the Khilafat movement? So Gandhiji sympathized with the cause, and along with the Khilafat leader, he travelled all over the country appealing people to observe 17th October 1919 as the Khilafat Day. And Muslim League gave full support to Congress on this political front. I mean, that was the day where we can see that Hindu and Muslim unite, stand under one umbrella. There was a widespread demonstration, strikes in all over the country. The Khilafat movement cleared the air of suspicion between Muslim and the INC. So Khilafat leaders such as Dr. Ansari, Maulana Azad, Hakim Azmal Khan founded the Jamia Millia Islamia in 1920 to promote the independent education and social education among the Muslims. Now, after Khilafat movement, to support this Khilafat movement, Gandhiji organized the non-cooperation movement on August 1920, challenging the British government. Now, the Congress adopted the famous resolution of non-cooperation in Calcutta session in 1920, and the movement had two kind of objectives. Non-cooperation movement gave it two objectives. In the first phase, Gandhiji launched a constructive program by popularizing the khadi or hand-woven cloth to attain the self-reliance. Charkha, that became the symbol of Swadeshi. And the second objective of non-cooperation movement was the destructive aspect. First was the constructive aspect, and second is the destructive. And destructive aspect included the boycott of the British court, British institution, British legislature and British officials and chambers, etc. The mass movement began and the bonfire of foreign goods became a common sight everywhere in the India. Indian people avoiding use of foreign goods and started the production of Indian textile mills and handlooms. So this was the time period where the Indian economy grown up, and somewhere the British government faces the loss. New educational institution also set up at that time. You can see at that time Kashi Vidyapeeth, Bihar Vidyapeeth, Bengal National University, National College of Lahore and National Muslim University of Aligarh was established by the INC Congress to educate the Indian youth. Boycott of election to the legislature was also successful. No congressman offered himself as a candidate in the election. So at that time, men like Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, C.R. Das, they organized the movement with the great zeal. And now the goal of the Congress was clearly defined as attaining the Swaraj by all legitimate and peaceful manner. We need the Swaraj, and in the Nagpur session of INC Congress, a permanent functionally body made it. In the meantime, the British government invited the Prince of Wales, come to India. The Congress decided to boycott the visit the Prince of Wales. If he is coming, no worry, we are not going to welcome him. So that was boycott by the INC. See how aggressive now we are becoming in the non-cooperation movement. And when Prince Wales entered to the India, it was welcomed by the Hartal. And everywhere there was a demonstration. Any annoyed at this government of India arrested all the important leaders except Gandhiji. And this was followed the series mob violence. Chora-chori incidents happened in the UP, United Provinces. As the movement was gradually become violent, lawless, then Gandhiji decided to withdraw to call off the non-cooperation movement. So we can say this non-cooperation movement had introduced the new technique to the political struggle and prepared the people how by using the non-violent method we can pressurize the British rule And this movement also showed the willingness to endure hardship and punishment in defiance of the government. Now moving to the Chora-Chori incidents. During the non-cooperation movement, some supports were carrying out a torchlight in procession in the small village of Gorakhpur. And where is Gorakhpur? In the UP, present day Uttar Pradesh. What happened? The non-violent procession was happened there. Lathi charge was done by the Britishers to the innocent satyagrahi. Now the satyagrahi became aggressive. And in aggression, they burned the police station where the 22 policemen were alive burnt, killed. And when Gandhiji heard this, that movement turned into the violence, and then he decided, no, this is not a way of satyagraha. The movement is not non-violence, converted into violence. That's why he decided to withdraw the non-cooperation movement. So this is the answer. Why non-cooperation movement withdraw? Because of the incidents of Chora-Chori. Moving to the Swaraj Party. The suspension of the non-cooperation movement by Gandhiji in 1922 was bitterly resented by some Congress leader. Means some Congress leader did not like this. Many people sacrificed in the non-cooperation movement. Just for one incident, Gandhiji has taken it back. So those leaders were C.R. Das, Pandit Motilal Nehru, and they came out from INC and they made their own party that is known as Swaraj Party. This party had a little faith in the civil disobedience movement also. It aimed to capture seats in the legislature by contesting election and to intensify the struggle for Swaraj. They want to be a part of Legislative Assembly of the Britishers. In the election, what happened? In 1923, the Swarajists won dominant position in Central Legislation Assembly and powerful influence in the Provincial Legislative Council. The party was successful in getting the Rowlatt Act repealed. And under the influence of this party, the government decided to increase the share of Indian commissioned officers in army also. In army, the number of Indian has increased. And due to the Swarajist effort only, some laws were also passed for the welfare of the industrial sector and industrial labor of India. Now, after the Swaraj Party, there is one commission entered into the Indian history very dramatically. This was the time when Britishers thought we need to give some chocolate to the Indian people so that they will become calm, peace, and they will not do any protest. To calm the Indian, what they introduced, the Simon Commission, and they said one commission will come to India and they look at the matter, governance of India, and they suggest some reforms in the constitution of the India. Now what happened? The Simon Commission, which was headed by Sir John Simon, it was commissioned in 1927 in India. But in this commission, there was no single member from India. All were Britishers. See, the commission is coming to India, which doesn't have any Indian member. How can they understand the problem of Indian? And that's why it was opposed by all Indian by raising the slogan, "Go back Simon," by showing the black flags. And this commission was greatly opposed by this slogan, "Simon, go back." And what happened? As usual, Britishers, they tried to suppress this satyagrahi. Why they are raising this slogan? And then they started the lathi charge at the peaceful boycott procession, in which we lost our great leader Lala Lajpat Rai, because he received the great lathi blows on his head and soon died because of this injury. This was the scenario of the Britishers. In November 1928, we lost the Punjab Kesari Lala Lajpat Rai. At Lucknow, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Govind Vallabh Pant also received the injuries in the police lathi charge while leading the procession. The commission, however, continued its work. Its report, formed on the basis of Government of India Act 1935, though it was not accepted by India. So that was the Simon Commission. Now that is the time period where there was the awakening of social group arise in the Indian society. The non-cooperation movement had awakened the mass politically, and the involvement of peasants made it truly a mass movement. Now there are some movement which was done by the peasants and the other community. Especially we are discussing about the Kheda peasant movement. Kheda is the district in Gujarat beta, and there the Kheda Satyagraha was organized by Mahatma Gandhi. What happened? Here the crop was failed and the Britishers were asking the high revenue, and our poor peasants were unable to pay those high revenue. Now what happened? How can they pay the revenue when the crop is not there? So land revenue was very high, very high. So Gandhiji there organized the peasant and organized the Kheda Satyagraha against this high revenue collection. The Satyagraha lasted till June 1918, and then government was forced to issue secret order directing that revenue should be recovered only from those peasants who could pay. So this was the effect of Kheda Satyagraha or Kheda peasant movement. Then after that, the another uprising was the Mopal uprising. Now the most important peasant movement was the Mopal revolt. Mopal means beta the mainly Muslim agriculturalists intensely exploited by the Nambudri, who happened to be the Brahman landlords in Malabar coast. So finally the Mopals rose up against the merciless exploitation at the hand of landlord supported by the Britishers. So what they did, they united themselves and revolted against these landlords who are collecting n number of the land revenue where they were unable to pay. But their rebel or their uprising were brutally crushed. Then 300 Mopals were killed and several thousands were wounded. But see, they rebel. And then workers movement also we have seen in the Indian history. Different classes and strata of the population joined the national movement as it developed during the years between 1918 to 1922. Now what happened? The first to act were the workers. Workers of India united themselves, participated in the strikes, satyagraha, etc. You can see in 1918 there was a wave of strikes swept throughout the country. They were asking for their right, they were asking for their better condition in the industry. The largest strikes in 1918 and 1919 took place in the Ahmedabad, Madras, Bombay and Calcutta. The Ahmedabad is also known as the Ahmedabad Satyagraha. Workers in Bombay and Madras organized themselves to demand higher wages and less working hours, better condition to the work. In 1920, the All India Trade Union Congress (INTUC) was established in Bombay, and the leaders like, who were the leaders? Jawaharlal Nehru, C.R. Das, Subhash Chandra Bose. They become the president turn by turn of this trade union, so that this trade union pressurized the Britishers for the better working condition of the workers. So that was the workers movement. Now moving to the famous another movement, that is the Bardoli movement. Bardoli movement in 1928, Bombay government increased the revenue demand by 22%. See, at that time cotton prices were fell, and at that time they were increasing the revenue tax. 22% they have increased. And secondly, demand for the land was so high that the rental charge by the landlord outstripped the amount of spread revenue. Now what happened? The Bardoli movement 1928 was organized, and it was aimed at undoing this justice. We cannot pay high revenue. We are unable. The local leaders with Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel organized the non-revenue campaign. Skillful use was made of caste association. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was very diplomat. In this Bardoli movement, he organized the every class of the society. No caste discrimination, no religious discrimination. He appealed on every field. And then this satyagraha was successfully. The chief characteristics of this satyagraha was that a person of any caste was free to participate in it. This is open for everyone. Somewhat unusual in those times. उस समय why we can participate, why we are going to participate? Because caste discrimination was there. But in Bardoli, every caste, every religious people has participated. So result, the government was forced to reach a settlement on the basis of judicial investment. Now, what was that? Judicial inquiry and return to the confiscated land. The Bardoli movement symbolized the agrarian peasant class alliance against the government. So, this was a great effort done by the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, where he pressurized the British government to do the welfare work in the favor of the peasants. Now, moving to the great movement, that is the civil disobedience movement 1930 to 1934. It was form of non-cooperation. This movement also tried to pressurize the government to concede the demand. It was done by breaking of the laws. Civil disobedience movement was the main aim to break up those laws which were not in the favor of the Indians. The movement began with the salt satyagraha, where Gandhiji decided to break the salt law made by the British government. The British government imposed the tax on the collection of salt, which was an item of daily use. See, salt pe tax they have imposed. And Gandhiji decided to walk from the Sabarmati ashram. He started his journey, his salt march from the Sabarmati ashram along with the 78 followers on March 12, 1930. And Gandhiji made the 358-kilometer long march to the Dandi. Dandi is the coastal village in the Gujarat, where when he reached on 6th April, ceremonially with the help of the villagers, he made the law and violated or the break the salt law. So that was the Dandi March. The famous Dandi March created the turmoil in the rank and file the British government. What happened? The Britishers took Gandhiji as a simple person, a very weak, thin-lean person. He cannot walk for the 358 kilometers, but he did it. So, it was a significant landmark in the history of India's freedom movement. People joined the movement spontaneously. Wherever Gandhiji roamed, the people from that area, they joined the salt march. And Gandhiji appealed to the nation to break not only the salt law, but all those laws which are not in the favor of the Indians, where the Britishers illegally fulfilled their demands. He declared, at present, Indian self-respect is symbolized. Work for your self-respect. Fight for your self-respect, your dignity, as it were, in a handful of salt in the satyagrahi's hand. Let's first be broken, but let there be no surrender of title. So this was the Gandhiji's word, where he motivated the people to break up the British law in a peaceful manner. Thousands of the people throughout the country broke up the salt law and many other law. Even the people started to break up the law, and boycott movements once again started. Students, teachers, they boycotted the school, British institutions, etc. Rural people were incited to refuse pay tax. Tribal community refused to pay the forest tax, etc. Chaukidari tax was abolished. Means the people started to break up the different laws in different areas. On 4th May 1930, Mahatma Gandhi was arrested before he could proceed to the Darshan salt work in Gujarat. So Darshana salt work in Gujarat, he was not there. He was confined in the Yarveda jail in Pune. वहाँ उन्हें रखा गया. And after that, Abbas Tayabzi and Sarojini Naidu led the march to capture the salt godown at Darshana. What happened? In the northwest frontier, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan supported the movement by establishing an organization, and he named that organization as the Khudai Khidmatgar. Here also he violated the law by withholding the payment of tax. He was not ready to pay the tax. In Nagaland also, 13-year-old Rani Gadnilu rebelled against the British rule to support Gandhiji's call. 13-year-old only. And she was imprisoned in 1932 and was released only in 1947. So after this great civil disobedience movement, we were having the great and the last movement for the freedom of India, that was Quit India movement in 1942. At that time, what happened? The World War II was break up. But World War II happened in 1939 to 1945. So it was anticipated by Congress leader that since India was a colony of Britain, there were a chance of Japan's to attack on India. Japan can attack on India. In a meeting in Bombay in August 8, 1942, All India Congress Committee adopted the Quit India solution, asking for the end of British rule in India. बस बहुत हो गया, now go back. Quit. The greatest significance of this Quit India movement was it placed independence on the immediate agenda of the national movement, that now we want the complete independence. Role of contemporary writing we discuss. After Quit India movement, you know beta, 1942 के बाद then we get the independence in 1947. But to emerge this feeling of nationalism, there was a role of the great writers. Contemporary writings also work on that. What was that? Along with the reform movement, the period developed the literary work also in 19th century, completely taken over by the problem of people and the new patriotic mood. अब इसमें आप क्या आते हैं that दीनबंधु मित्रा, he played the Neel Darpan, exposed the indigo planters situations, their suffering. The greatest influence remained that of Bankim Chand Chatterjee. He has written the novel Anand Math, and after that he has written the song Vande Mataram, that is still our national song. Then after that, आपका Grish Chandra Ghosh, he also popularized with the theatre, dominated by him, sentimental domestic dramas and Puranic plays based on the political issue he showed in his theatre. Then M.G. Ranade, in his note on growth of Marathi literature, catalogued the rapid increase in the number of Marathi publications and encouraged people to new versions of the poem and medieval bhakti poets. 1903, if we see, the Bipin Chandra Pal in New India stated that since the Albert Bill days, politics have been neglected in the interest of abstract religion. Then after that, in central India, you can see the Bharatendu Harish Chandra. He started the plea to use the Swadeshi articles. After that, Prem Chand, he gave the clear view of the poor society, poor condition of rural people of India under the British rule. Then in his economic history of India, R.C. Dutt established a link between the India's growing poverty and British policies, more particularly the drain of wealth throughout and artificial export of surplus, etc. Then in 1873, the writing of Bhola Nath Chandra, Ranade and Bal Gangadhar Tilak in Maratha revealed that the industrial enterprise, industrialization was the main requirement of that time. They appealed to their countrymen to make industrial enterprise the ocean of the river of all their thoughts. Then only industries can grow up. Then in 1901, Lala Lajpat Rai, in his article published Kayastha Samachar, advocated the technical education and industrial self-help apart from the extremist policy. Until and unless we are not working on our technical education, now we cannot grow up. Then after that, Francis Robinson has described in great detail the process of Gandhi's rise to power in course of 19 to 1920. Even Mahatma Gandhi, in his autobiography, The Story of My Experiment with Truth, gives the detailed account of political movements within the freedom struggle. So most of the writing and the literary work of this period, they inspired the Indian to have a collective sense belonging, to have the feeling of nationalism and promote yourself to fight against the Britishers, fight for the independence of India. So that's end for the chapter. Let's do the quick revision. What we have discussed in this chapter, Chora Chori incidents. These are the important points that happened in 1922 at Gorakhpur in UP. Then Communist Party of India, they were established in 1825. After that, Ram Prasad Bismil, Ashfullah Khan, Rajendra Lahiri, Rohan Singh were hanged in 1825 for Kankori conspiracy case. Then Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt threw 2 bombs in assembly in 1929. Simon Commission arrived in India to introduce some reform in the Government of India Act 1919. Jawaharlal Nehru demanded for the Purna Swaraj in Lahore session of INC in 1929. The second roundtable conference was attended by Gandhiji in 1931. So that's end for the chapter. I hope you understand each and every topic. Please do the exercise carefully.